Hello, everyone. Tonight we are walking barefoot through a prehistoric marsh. Just as the sky begins to rumble, no roads, no roofs, just a flat stretch of dark water reflecting a storm that hasn't even arrived yet. You're here now with nothing but a warm wind across your chest and something hard beneath your feet that might be shell or might not. Welcome to a world where the oldest animals on Earth are already experts in listening to the sky. And you fresh, from the invention of thumbs and hubris, are definitely the odd one out. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. Let me know where you were listening from and what time it is there. Now, turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get started tonight. You shuffle along the edge of a nesting lagoon in the last age before continents remembered their final shapes. It smells like mud and wet roots. The air tastes electric, but only if you breathe in through your nose like you're about to ask an ancient question. The turtles are already here. Of course they are. They've always been here. Dozens of them, some the size of ottomans, others no bigger than a clamshell, all digging slow pits into the damp sand. Their limbs work without urgency. Their eyes, small as ink drops, glance upward now and then, but not at you, at the clouds. They're watching the sky in that way animals do when they know it's more dangerous than at anything walking on the ground. A low roll of thunder spreads across the flat terrain. You feel it in your stomach first, then your ears, then the way your own fingers hesitate in motion, mimicking the turtles without knowing why. It's not even raining yet. But the storm has already arrived because the turtles said so. Somewhere far across the marsh, a heron lifts off in slow motion. Behind it, a baby turtle digs clumsily beside its mother, flinging sand like it hasn't yet learned that the sky sometimes listens. You crouch low. You're not sure why. Maybe it's because you realize that the thunder isn't just a sound, it's a presence. And in this marsh, in this moment, the turtles are preparing not to flee, but to endure it. That's what nesting season was about back then. Not laying eggs in peace, but placing them in the exact moment between rain and wind, counting on the storm to keep other predators away. It's a weird gamble, like leaving your door unlocked because you know the local gang is scared of lightning. But it worked, sometimes. A large female pauses mid-burial. Her hind leg rises then freezes. Her neck retracts slightly. You hear another distant boom, this time sharper, like the sky cleared its throat. Her leg doesn't move. She's now perfectly still, like a statue half-finished. If she had eyebrows, they'd be furrowed. And you realize something, this stillness, it's not fear. It's strategy. Prehistoric turtles, especially soft-shelled ones, had to develop a kind of stillness that went beyond survival. It was almost theatrical. To a predator that hunted motion like the crocodilomorphs prowling the reed beds, a frozen turtle wasn't a turtle. It was scenery. And that habit over time became something sacred. A splash nearby breaks the tension. A younger turtle has misjudged a patch of mud and slips sideways. She rights herself with an awkward shuffle, and two older turtles immediately stop what they're doing and retract into their shells as if saying, "Great, now the storm knows we're here." Another crack rolls through, and this one's louder. No flash yet, just sound, like the sky is dragging furniture across its upper floor. You notice some of the turtles have stopped digging altogether. Not out of panic, but because they know storms are better faced still and shallow than busy and bold. By the way, did you know turtles can breathe through their butts? Not all of them, but some. It's called cloacal respiration. And when you're spending hours buried under mud and waiting for a storm to pass, that's a handy little adaptation. Imagine surviving thunder by exhaling through your rear. If turtles had therapists, that'd be a recurring theme. Back to the lagoon, you watch as the wind shifts slightly. Not enough to ruffle hair, but enough to carry that pre-rain coolness, the kind that makes everything smell like the bottom of a cave. A nearby turtle shifts, angling its body toward the wind. Not to greet it, to brace. There's something reverent in the way they do this. Not religious, not symbolic, Just a very old, very slow choreography passed down through shell memory. Each generation learned to read the pressure drop, the delay between light and sound, and how to position themselves where water wouldn't pool under the nest. Some historians still debate whether these behaviors are truly learned or just evolution on autopilot, but when you see it in person, there's a spooky awareness to it. Like these turtles remember storms, not just last year's, but the ones from epochs you can't even pronounce. A branch falls behind you. You jump. The turtles don't. And in that moment, you realize that survival here doesn't mean fleeing. It means knowing what not to react to. You with your twitchy hands and clever thumbs are the loud one in the room. The turtles, half buried and silent, are the monks. One large male, scarred across his carapace, lifts his head toward the cloud line and doesn't flinch when the first flash of lightning finally breaks the horizon. You hear the boom 5 seconds later, and you count it because of course you do. Because you've been taught to measure the sky in seconds like it owes you a schedule. But the turtles don't measure anything. They feel it. Through the sand, through their bones, through the hollowed echo chamber of their shells. You sit slowly in the mud, letting the first droplets hit your knees. And for the first time tonight, you try to listen to thunder like a turtle might. Not with fear, not with awe, but with a kind of seasoned boredom. Like thunder is just another old neighbor who complains a lot but doesn't really do much. The turtles keep digging, slowly, steadily. Like the sky doesn't scare them, it just interrupts. The next one doesn't wait. It cracks open the entire sky like someone splitting firewood across your spine. You flinch, of course you do. One hand halfway to your ear, the other grasping for something solid. But the turtles, they vanish, not into holes, not under leaves, into themselves. You've seen humans fold themselves emotionally, but this is physical. Every head retracts, every limb pulls back with a practiced silence that says, "We've done this before." 1 second there's a dozen animals in motion, the next you're surrounded by pebbled domes, each one suddenly pretending to be an abandoned rock. The baby turtle, the one that had been flinging sand like a pastry chef, has gone utterly still. You didn't see it happen. One blink and its head is gone. Just 2 wide eye sockets before now, nothing but shell and the faintest trembling seam at the edge. The only proof of life is the occasional breath steaming out under its belly. Another clap of thunder closer now. You feel it through the mud. And something in the way it moves through you, bone first, then heart tells you the turtles aren't just hearing it, they're wearing it. The shells around you seem to thrum. It's not poetic, it's physics. Turtle shells aren't just shields, they're acoustic chambers. The keratin plates atop bonework, like tiny percussion instruments. Each thunderclap sends a vibration rippling through the earth, through the damp substrate, and into those ancient domes. If you press your ear to one, you might catch the faint hum of the sky itself. You might also get a snapped nose, but hey, field research is dangerous. Historians still debate whether early turtles evolved this sensitivity as a survival mechanism or as a weird side effect of hunkering down so much. What's not up for debate is how fast they learned to interpret that drumbeat. Long before mammals even figured out milk turtles could distinguish a hungry predator from an incoming storm based purely on how the ground vibrated. One old turtle near you shell, chipped at the rim like it's lived through things the rest of us don't talk about. Shifts slightly not out but deeper, just enough to wedge herself more tightly into the mud. You hear a soft squelch. It's the sound of surrender. The rain starts. Big drops. Lazy drops. Like someone above is taste testing the storm. You crouch lower not because the rain bothers you, it's actually kind of nice, but because you want to see what the turtles do next. Turns out nothing. Total stillness. Not the panicked stillness of an animal in shock. The patient practiced stillness of creatures that have spent literal millions of years convincing the universe they're not interesting. And honestly, it's working. You find your own breath syncing up with them. Shallow, infrequent. A strange calm settles over the marsh. Somewhere out in the reeds, a bird calls once sharply, then stops. The shells look like stepping stones now, ancient and unbothered. There's a joke here, but even your thoughts have gone quiet. The kind of quiet you get inside a museum at night. Or maybe a tomb. Oh, by the way, did you know that some turtles can live longer than your favorite celebrity marriage by a factor of 5? One Altabra giant tortoise was estimated to be 255 when it passed. That's not just old, that's opinionated. Imagine weathering colonialism, the radio World War II, and still being suspicious of thunder like it owes you rent. Back to the lagoon. You reach out toward one of the shells closest to you. Not to touch it, more like hover nearby. The turtle doesn't move. You wonder if it knows you're there. You wonder if it cares. Another burst of lightning, this time so close you see its reflection streak across the water like a god dropped a sparkler. This time the thunder doesn't roll. It punches. A single wall of sound that flattens your breath for a moment. The shells twitch. Not all, just a few. Like something deep inside them debated reacting, but then decided, nah, not worth it. You almost laugh. Not because it's funny, because the turtle's collective meh in the face of this cosmic percussion is the most rebellious thing you've ever seen. You've watched documentaries of predators charging across plains. You've seen humans light fireworks just to feel powerful. But this is stillness so absolute it becomes an act of protest. At the edge of the marsh, a log shifts. No, wait, not a log. A soft-shell turtle, almost invisible until it moved, slinks back into a darker patch of mud. Its shell is smooth and leathery like a deflated basketball. It didn't tuck in. It slid away. A coward? Maybe. Or maybe it just likes a different kind of hiding. One of the shelled turtles near you begins to extend a nose just slightly. Testing, sniffing the air for judgment. You stay perfectly still because you've learned now the fastest way to ruin a turtle's trust is by breathing too loudly. The nose retracts. Okay, you get it. Not yet. You wipe your face. The rain's picked up now, steady and honest, the kind that gets into your shoes and doesn't apologize. But none of the turtles move. They don't hate the rain. They don't love it either. It's just part of the performance. Eventually, another turtle head appears. This one's smaller, with algae crusted along its jaw like a fashionable beard. It blinks slowly, not at you, at the sky. The blink seems to say is again. One more joke before we wrap this section. If thunder were a person, it'd be the guy at karaoke who insists on singing the same power ballad every week, loud, unnecessary, but somehow tolerated because it's tradition. You close your eyes, you breathe with the turtles, and when the next thunderclap arrives, you don't flinch this time. The rain thickens. It doesn't fall. It settles like it's trying to bury the world under slow percussion. The kind of rain that makes you feel like you're inside a drum. You've stopped trying to guess where the thunder's coming from. Every direction feels like it's echoing. Even your eyelashes seem to twitch from the sound, and the turtles, still, still. Which brings us to something that turtles figured out long before we did, the ancient art of doing absolutely nothing but doing it well. You might think of stillness as hesitation, as weakness, but in this marsh, stillness is information. Stillness is reputation. If you can sit long enough, quiet enough, the world will forget to eat you. There's one turtle in front of you now, half embedded in the soil, head tucked but not tight. Not in fear, in patience. You get the sense it's listening not with ears but with bones, with skin, with the slight flex of its limbs pressed against the mud like a stethoscope made of evolution. You shift slightly. Your knee makes a soft splash. That turtle, it retracts deeper. Not fast, no panic, but firm like a curtain being drawn. It reminds you of a seasoned librarian pulling a book off a shelf without looking. No need for drama. Historians still debate whether this kind of behavioral stillness was encoded over generations or if it was learned from watching the world make mistakes. One wrong twitch near a saber-toothed amphibian. That turtle didn't get a second chance. But its neighbor, the one who held still, it lived to see a few dozen more thunderstorms and possibly a few dozen more evolutionary branches. You can almost feel the marsh holding its breath with you. There's a rhythm to this place that has nothing to do with speed. It's more like strategy through slowness. If you don't attract attention, you don't invite chaos. And then it happens. A younger turtle, maybe foolish, maybe curious, sticks its head out too far. The rain's flowing fast now, turning the sandy berm into a tiny stream. The turtle looks toward it like a child eyeing a playground slide. And before anyone can silently disapprove, it slips in. It doesn't fall dramatically. It just drifts. Down the slope across the slick algae, its claws paddling like it's pretending to be a grown-up. It glides through a puddle, bobs once, then awkwardly bumps into a larger turtle and freezes mid-bounce, as if hoping no one noticed. No one reacts. Well, one older turtle shifts her eyes ever so slightly. Not her head, just her eyes. If turtles could sigh, she would have. You get the sense she's seen that exact mistake for the past million years. Maybe she made it herself once. Maybe twice. Oh, side fact. Some turtles can go months without food, slowing their metabolism until they're practically just decorative stones with opinions. In harsh seasons, they literally shut down unnecessary bodily functions and wait for better times. Humans do something similar when taxes are due. Now, while the smaller turtles hunker and the older ones embody the spirit of stone, a peculiar thing happens. A pulse of warmth spreads across the surface of the mud. Not from the ground, but from above. Lightning has just struck a few miles away, and the after ripple is more than light, it's heat, momentary, soft, but present. You imagine for a moment what that must feel like inside a shell. A sudden warming, a pressure shift. The sky getting involved with your insides for a blink of time. That would be enough to make most mammals yelp, but for turtles, it's probably just Tuesday. There's something calming about how they don't dramatize anything. No flailing, no sprinting, just a deep ancestral patience that says we've outlived worse. You try to mimic it. You stop moving, just sit there, spine aligned with the rhythm of the rain, ears open to thunder, not as a threat, but as a pattern. You feel silly at first, but then the tension starts leaking out of your limbs, and you begin to understand stillness isn't absence. It's presence without panic. A mosquito lands on your arm. You don't swat it. Not because you're a pacifist, but because swatting feels loud now. It would ruin the vibe. Another joke for the road. Here's one. If humans invented noise to feel important, turtles invented silence to feel invisible. Guess which one survives extinction better? The marsh hums with the sound of water hitting water. Somewhere far off, a tree groans, not breaks, just complains. And amid all this, the turtles hold still, like they're auditioning for statues in a dream. No movement, no timeline, just shell and mud and memory. You lean closer to one that's half buried. Its shell is chipped, barnacle-patched, and colored like old parchment. You wonder what it's seen, what it felt in previous storms. Did it hide the same way when the sky roared louder? When meteors fell? When the moon tilted slightly wrong, and the tides betrayed the shore? Because the truth is these turtles, or at least their ancestors, were there for it all. For the breakup of Pangea. For the first flowering plants. For every thunderstorm since thunder became a thing. When they brace for weather, it's not out of fear. It's out of deep time etiquette. That idea settles in your chest like a warm stone. And finally, as the wind shifts again and the rain softens slightly, one turtle uncurls. Just the head. Just enough to sniff. Then a leg. Then both eyes appear blinking in unison. It doesn't speak, obviously. But if it did, it'd probably say, "Still here, still listening." The rain eases just enough for the sky to start breathing again. You don't notice it at first, your brain's been slow-cooked by thunder for the past half hour, but something has changed. The rhythm of the marsh has shifted from survive to observe. And the turtles, one by one, begin to re-emerge, Not with speed, not with celebration, but with the slow ceremonial grace of animals who've made a religion out of caution. You follow one particularly old turtle down a shallow decline carved by years of water, and turtles arguing silently about where to lay eggs. She glides across the mud like a leaf that decided to grow legs. You're not even sure why you're following her. Maybe it's because she seems to know something you don't. Or maybe because she doesn't care whether you're there or not. The path widens into a muddy basin dotted with old stumps and blackened rocks. A slow-moving stream curls through it like a fossil in progress. And on the far bank you spot something strange half-buried slabs of reddish clay, patterned with delicate swirls and lines. You squint. No, not natural patterns. Finger marks. Someone made these. Long, long ago. You wade closer. There's no sign of who made them, just evidence that hands were here. Small ones. Careful ones. Not flailing with fear, but tracing. Drawing. Recording. On one panel, a turtle is etched in silhouette, round, stylized, almost cheerful. On another, a jagged fork descending from the sky, lightning or something like it. And in between the two, a thick, winding line like a serpent or maybe sound. The clay is old. So old it's hardened into memory, yet still soft enough in places to hold the trace of what someone once felt about turtles and storms. They weren't just animals and weather, they were symbols. Which raises the question, when did we start mythologizing turtles? When did a wet-shelled reptile become more than meat or nuisance? Historians still debate whether these early riverbed etchings were religious playful or simply decorative. But one thing's clear, someone thousands or even tens of thousands of years ago stood beside a marsh like this and thought, that thing survives storms. I want that kind of magic. You kneel beside a clay panel where the turtle is surrounded by concentric rings, ripples, echoes, thunder waves. The symbol repeats over and over, like someone needed the idea to sink into the earth. And you wonder what the child who pressed that shape into the clay believed thunder really was. Was it a voice, a monster? A spirit angry at the earth for holding still too long? Or maybe, and this is just a guess, they believed turtles understood it. Another etching shows a turtle with exaggerated ears. Not realistic, but stylized to look like it's listening. Huge spiraled shapes on either side of its head. It's ridiculous, but also kind of perfect. You glance at the turtle beside you, the real one half-caked in mud and blinking like someone waking from a 1,000-year nap. She doesn't care about the clay. She's here to check the temperature and see if it's safe to poop. But the carvings are a different story. You run your finger gently across the spiral ear pattern, and a little voice in your head whispers, "They thought these animals could hear the gods." Of course, not all myths age well. One nearby slab has a turtle with tiny legs and wings, absolutely inaccurate, but 10/10 for imagination. It looks like a flying dinner plate. You chuckle quietly. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe the kid who made it just got bored. Maybe they were dared. Did you know that some modern indigenous stories in Southeast Asia and Africa still describe turtles as beings who brought balance to storms? Not because they caused weather, but because their stillness calmed it. It's not a scientific model, but honestly, it makes emotional sense. The clay panels tell a similar story in symbols. In one, the lightning bolt is approaching a turtle. In the next, it stops. And in the final panel, the turtle is surrounded by little sprouts as if peace returned because someone didn't panic. You sit beside the display of ancient etchings, rain washing over your knees, and realize you've stumbled into a prehistoric gallery of weather therapy, and every single turtle drawn here is not fleeing. Not hiding, just waiting. There's something about that which hits different after you've spent an hour flinching every time the sky cracks open. A footstep behind you squishes. You turn, heart leaping, but it's just a very wet turtle joining you at the edge. Its shell is darker than the others, almost charcoal. Burned perhaps in a fire from long ago. Or just colored that way by time and dirt. Either way, it pauses beside the clay like it's inspecting the art. Or judging it. or remembering being it. For a moment, just one, you get the sense the turtle knows. Not cognitively, not like, oh hey, that's me, but more like, yeah, I've felt that shape in my bones too. Another lightning flash, brighter this time, no thunder yet. The turtle blinks once. You wait. 5 seconds. 6, 7. Then the sky gives its answer, long, rolling, dramatic. Less a shout than a complaint. And the turtle still unmoved. You look back at the carved spirals in the clay. Thunder as sound. Thunder as presence. Thunder as something turtles don't fear, but weather like a conversation. You lean back, letting the rain hit your face, thinking about those prehistoric children pressing symbols into soft earth, trying to understand the storm, trying to understand the turtle, maybe hoping one would explain the other. One last fact for this section, scientists have found ceremonial turtle shells in Neolithic graves often buried near infants. Maybe they were symbols of protection or rebirth. Maybe just toys, but something in us across cultures and millennia has always looked at these creatures and seen something more than reptile. Something like memory, something like thunder. You're still kneeling in the rain, but now your focus has shifted. Away from the clay, away from the carvings, toward the turtle. Beside you, the one with the charcoal shell that hasn't flinched once even as the thunder rolls louder and closer than ever. And then it happens again. Another blast from the sky, not just heard, but felt a deep, gut-shaking boom that seems to ring from above and below all at once. You instinctively hunch, your ears ring, your jaw clenches, but the turtle beside you, its shell vibrates. Visibly, a faint shiver ripples across its surface like someone plucked a harp string buried under mud. You lean closer, unsure if your eyes are tricking you, but no, that shell responded. Which makes you wonder, what does thunder feel like inside a shell? It's not just armor, it's architecture. The carapace is a layered dome of fused ribs, peen, and keratin, a structure that not only defends but resonates, like a drum, a bell, a hollow amphitheater. You knock on it once, gently. Dumb idea. The turtle doesn't react, but you feel your knuckle buzz with something metallic. It's not a dead thunk, it's a note. And here's the thing. Some researchers have argued that turtle shells may actually amplify low-frequency vibrations from the environment. Not to hear exactly. Turtles don't have external ears like us, but to feel. So what if thunder isn't just noise to them? What if it's music? There's a prehistoric elegance in imagining thunder as a concert and turtles as its quietest audience. Picture it 1,000 domed backs lining a wet riverbank, each humming softly, imperceptibly, with the sky's own rhythm. One researcher once joked that an entire marsh of turtles in a thunderstorm might vibrate like a field of kettle drums. That same researcher was denied further grant funding, but the image stuck. Historians still debate whether such shell resonance had any social meaning. Did turtles huddle together to share the sound? Did it soothe hatchlings? Or was it just incidental, a lucky quirk of evolution that happened to turn the oldest bones in the world into prehistoric subwoofers? You reach down again and this time place your palm flat against the top of the turtle's shell, and you feel it. Not a strong vibration, not something you'd notice in passing, but a low, soft thrumming the way a guitar hums if you leave it on a table when someone slams a door. The turtle blinks slowly. You don't move. You feel like you've tapped into something sacred, or at least very, very old. There's a joke somewhere in here about turtles and jazz. Like, if turtles had a favorite genre, it wouldn't be high-speed chase music, it'd be free-form thunder improv. Slow, unexpected, soulful, rain as percussion, thunder as bass line. Another clap of sound splits the air, but now you don't flinch. You're listening differently. You're not afraid of it. You're curious, like the turtles. The turtle withdraws slightly, not from fear, but perhaps because you were starting to get too sentimental. Fair. You sit back in the mud, hands heavy with rain, head buzzing with thoughts. The carvings on the clay are still there behind you. But this shell in front of you, that's the real story. Not mythology. Not decoration, but instrument. Did you know that in some early civilizations, turtle shells were literally used as drums and divination tools? In ancient China, oracle bones were often made from turtle plastrons, heated until they cracked, then read like celestial tea leaves. Even back then, people believed turtles could speak something true, something ancient. Maybe that belief didn't come from superstition alone. Maybe it came from sitting beside one during a storm and realizing this thing hears the sky through its bones. A soft rustle in the reeds behind you breaks your thought. You turn. Another turtle is approaching, this one broader, flatter, and trailing a thin ribbon of algae like a shawl. It nudges the charcoal-shelled one not aggressively, more like a reminder, time to move. The charcoal turtle shifts, then slowly begins crawling toward a cluster of others already forming a crescent shape along a higher patch of ground. And that's when you notice something weird. They're all facing the same way. Not quite north, not quite toward the water, but toward the open sky, toward where the storm is thickest, where the thunder keeps blooming across the heavens like someone keeps striking a celestial match. They're not huddling together, they're not fleeing. They're arranging themselves like antennae, like passive listeners forming a rough arc, each body angled slightly to catch the next vibration. You count 7 of them, then 10, then more. A pattern. Not random, deliberate. And suddenly, you're back in the head of that ancient child drawing spirals in the clay. Maybe they saw this too. Maybe the ear turtle wasn't a joke. Maybe it was a diagram. The turtles position themselves and stop. No digging, no chewing, no mating, just still. A wind rushes through the reeds. The rain thickens again. And from somewhere in the deep gray clouds above, thunder booms huge, messy, spectacular. And the shells shiver. Not all. Just the ones at the front of the ark. You see a slight vibration like a ripple passing through stone. The turtles behind them don't move, but maybe they feel it too. Maybe the sound carries from one shell to the next like relay stations, like a prehistoric telephone line that only works when the sky screams. You sit in the middle of it, wet and awestruck, and you wonder, is this communication worship habit? Or maybe it's just turtles being turtles and you're the one making it mythic. But even that thought doesn't diminish it. If anything, it feels more holy. One of the turtles, young, lighter in color, smoother in shell, shifts again. It's been in the crescent, angled with the others, still and quiet, but now something's changed. It pulls its front leg forward too fast. Mud splashes. The others don't react, but you see it, the subtle ripple of tension that moves through the younger one's body, like second thoughts arriving too late. Then it bolts. Well, as much as a turtle can bolt. Its limbs churn frantically, flinging globs of wet soil behind it, shell rocking with each push. It makes a sharp turn, flounders through a shallow puddle, and heads for the tall grass near the water's edge. And in that motion, the break from stillness, you feel it wrongness. Not moral wrongness. Not dramatic horror movie wrongness. Just the sense that something very old has been disrupted. The others don't move. Not one head turns. But they all know. You can tell. You stand instinctively watching the young one flail through reeds that hiss against its shell. Rain slaps harder now, the kind of rainfall that sounds like frying oil, each drop a tiny spark on your skin. The turtle is panicking. You don't need a science degree to see that. Whatever it was waiting for it decided it couldn't wait anymore. The ground gets softer as it runs. Then softer. Then suddenly it sinks. The turtle's front half dips into what looks like a patch of soggy grass, but is actually a pit of flooded, silty mud. Its back legs kick, trying to find grip, but only slosh around. You take a step forward, then stop, because something else moves. At first, you think it's just the water responding to the turtle's thrashing. But then you see it, a ripple flowing in the wrong direction. Against gravity, against sense. Something is beneath the surface, approaching silently, too slowly to be weather, too direct to be anything but alive. And then eyes. Just 2 of them. Low set, yellow ringed, breaking the surface less than a meter away from the struggling turtle. You don't scream. There's no time. A flash of lightning gives the moment a strange clarity, like a single still frame in a dream. And in that second, the predator rises. Not all at once, just enough to identify it. A crocodilian, but not like the ones you've seen in zoos. This one's snout is flatter. Its skin darker, more patterned, camouflaged in blotches of gray-green and leaf dark. Not a modern crocodile, an ancient one. Possibly a Deinosuchus or some long-lost cousin of terror. And it has waited. Not in hunger, though yes, that's part of it, but in calculation, in silence. Historians still debate the hunting behavior of prehistoric crocodilians. Did they ambush from beneath lure prey with stillness? Or use environmental sounds like thunder to mask their own movement? Some paleontologists believe early crocs exploited the chaos of storms. Rain disrupted the water's surface. Thunder concealed the splash. And prey turtles, amphibians, even small dinosaurs were more likely to make rash decisions in bad weather. You just watch that theory play out in real time. The predator surges forward, not with drama but precision. There's no splash, just a clamp. A sudden brutal press of jaws and the turtle's motion stops. It doesn't scream. It can't. Turtles don't have voices for that. But your body reacts anyway, shoulders tightening, stomach folding inward, a breath caught halfway down your throat. The crocodilian backs into the water as smoothly as it came. No fanfare, no chewing, just disappearance. The rain softens again, naturally. Ironic timing. You glance back toward the other turtles, still unmoving, still facing the same direction. Not because they didn't see, but because they knew. The turtle that fled made the wrong call. Not because movement is always bad, but because timing is everything. Stillness isn't always safe, but breaking it at the wrong moment, that's worse. You sit again, heart racing, breath unsteady, and suddenly you realize the storm didn't kill the young turtle. Its decision did. The thunder had passed, the worst was over, but fear doesn't care about forecasts. It convinces you to act when you shouldn't. That's what the others knew. A joke feels out of place, but your brain offers one anyway. If turtles had therapists, the top diagnosis would be premature motion disorder. You let it sit there stupid and small, but comforting. Another distant rumble sounds across the horizon, a kind one. The kind of thunder that's more like a sigh. And the turtle nearest to you extends its head again, blinks once, and then very gently begins to shift forward, following the others who've started to realign their bodies into new formations. Slowly, cautiously, intact. Did you know that some turtles have been observed adjusting their nesting times based on barometric pressure? They feel the coming weather and make choices that protect not just themselves but their future. The storm doesn't just shape the moment, it shapes the strategy. And in that light, you realize this wasn't a tragedy. It was a lesson, an old one, etched not in clay but in silence and timing. You close your eyes for a second. You hear no cries, no mourning, just rain, and the soft rustle of shell against mud. You remain seated in the wet hush of aftermath. The sky is quieter now, no longer a shouting match, but something closer to grumbling. One of those long, tired conversations the clouds seem to have with themselves after losing their temper. A breeze tickles your ears. It smells like wet bark and regrets. The turtles. They haven't flinched. They're repositioning now gradually as if the entire marsh is exhaling. There's a strange grace to the motion, like choreographed slowness. The kind of thing that if you blinked too fast you'd miss entirely. You glance at the reeds where the young turtle vanished. The water has already calmed. The mud is smoothing itself. Nature doesn't mourn long. You understand now, stillness isn't just a tactic. It's an answer to what thunder leaves behind. There's a soft splish beside you. A small turtle, maybe 10 inches across, has started to creep forward, head high, eyes wide, not afraid, just alert. And you're struck again by the weird delay between light and sound. You've always been taught that thunder comes after lightning. Count the seconds, they said. Every 5 means another mile. But what they never told you is that the delay isn't just science. It's a metaphor. Because in turtle time, everything is delayed. reactions, growth, decisions, even mistakes. A turtle can sit frozen for hours after a predator is gone just to be sure. Some have been documented staying motionless for days after an encounter. Days. No food, no movement, just waiting for the world to feel different. Historians still debate whether this extreme stillness is pure instinct or learned behavior from past trauma. Is it fear echoing through a lineage, or just really committed caution? You watch the little turtle in front of you sniff at a stick. It's a harmless stick, but it sniffs again, then pulls back. To the turtle, that stick might be a snake, or a rival, or a memory. Either way, it's worth the extra second. Lightning flashes again in the far distance. Not close, not threatening, but enough to make the air change color for half a breath. You watch the flash, then count 1, 2, 3, boom. And in those 3 seconds, something shifts. The turtle steps forward, and suddenly you get it. For turtles, the gap between lightning and thunder is like the gap between thought and action. A buffer. A chance to interpret the sky before doing anything dumb. Humans could have learned from that, but we didn't. We heard the bang and leapt up screaming. We took every flash as a command, every rumble as a countdown. Maybe that's why we build so fast, burn so fast, react too fast. Turtles. They wait, they watch, and only then do they crawl. Even when it's safe. Even when you and I would have already finished panicking, Googled it, and tweeted something sarcastic about it. A turtle shell next to you vibrates softly. Not from thunder, from the memory of it. Did you know turtle shells grow in rings like trees? Each line on the scutes, the keratin plates on top, marks growth stress. Even seasons. You can read their lives if you know how to count, and some lines are thicker. Raised, warped, weather damage. That's right, some turtles wear their storms on their backs. Quite literally. You reach toward one of them, now fingers tracing across 3 deep ridges along the back. They curve slightly like ripples from a dropped stone. Maybe it was injured during a flood, or maybe it nested during a season of too many tempests. Either way, the shell remembers. And what's stranger, some scientists believe stress during development can actually change the growth pattern of the shell permanently. Like a thunderstorm caught in fossil form. It's the closest thing turtles have to memory. You think about your own memories. Not carved into bone or shell, but floating loosely in that brain of yours, half-formed and unreliable. Wouldn't it be something if every heartbreak, every bolt of fear left a physical mark you could trace like Braille? Lightning again. 1, 2. Boom. This one's softer. A tired thunder. The kind that feels like it's limping away. A turtle near your foot opens its mouth, just a little. You think it might be sighing, or maybe yawning. Can turtles yawn? You make a mental note to look that up later. It feels like the storm is passing. Not gone. Just further. The way regret lingers behind you on a long walk home. The young turtle, the one who sniffed the stick, finally climbs onto a patch of moss and settles in. No fanfare. No victory dance. Just the quiet decision to be done moving. A joke floats up now: if turtles ran weather stations, every alert would just say, "Wait longer." But honestly, it wouldn't be wrong. You look around and realize you're surrounded by stillness again. Not the frozen bracing kind from earlier, but a restful one. The kind of silence you hear after a long concert. A shared exhale. You lean back against a patch of firmer ground. Let the air cool your cheeks. And as your heart slows and the thunder slips even further into memory, you begin to understand. Lightning may strike first. Thunder may follow. But it's the waiting in between, that measured space, that trembling pause, that teaches you how to survive. The clouds thin into bruised cotton. Not gone, just stretched wider the way old worries eventually loosen their grip. Sunlight tries to bleed through in pale streaks, but it's too early to celebrate. The air still smells like iron and something scorched. The turtles. They begin to move. Not all at once, not in unison, just a general sense of unfreezing. One pulls its leg from the muck with the sound of wet paper tearing. Another exhales a single visible puff of breath and begins its slow inching pivot toward higher ground. But then something strange happens. Not all the turtles are leaving. Some are arriving. You hear at first a faint slosh, followed by the delicate crackle of algae splitting under broad weight. From the direction of the flooded stream, new shapes are crawling forward. Larger ones, much larger. One breaks through a curtain of reeds like a floating stone waking from a centuries-long nap. Archelon. You feel that name before you even remember it. The largest sea turtle to ever live, some as big as a car, others nearly wider than a small bedroom. And one of them is crawling towards you right now, barnacled and rain-slicked, a silent prehistoric monument dragged into motion by something unseen. You back up half a step, not in fear, in respect. It's magnificent in the way tectonic plates are. Not fast, but unarguable. Another follows, then another. They move like echoes, delayed but deliberate. No panic, no hesitation, just forward, forward, forward. At least 6 archelons, now some with algae-furred shells, others with smoother backs that catch glints of lowlight like wet obsidian. They're heading inland. That's right. Inland. Away from the flooded coast, away from the safety of water. You almost ask them out loud what they're doing. Because nothing in the known guidebook of turtle behavior suggests that giant sea turtles should be crawling into muddy marshes after a storm. But they are. And it isn't random. Historians still debate whether ancient turtles like Archelon use storms as migratory triggers, much like how some birds use wind patterns, or how amphibians emerge en masse during heavy rain. The idea is that massive fluctuations in pressure, wind, and noise could signal a kind of threshold. Now is the time to move. And maybe, just maybe, these old creatures weren't just reacting to storms. Maybe they were following them. Because what comes after a massive inland storm? Flooded channels, loosened banks, easy passageways carved through landscapes that otherwise would have been impassable. To a turtle the size of a compact car, a few feet of fresh water over dry land might be a highway. You watch one archelon lift its head, long pointed snout, glistening eyes like polished beads, and sniff the air, not like a predator, but like a navigator. It doesn't look confused. It looks invited. There's a kind of turtle logic unfolding here. Not frantic, not heroic, just ancient calculus. Storm equals water. Water equal access. Access equal new nesting ground. They've done this before. Not these individuals. They won't live forever. But their bones remember. Their blood carries coordinates passed down like lullabies from the sea. And as they trudge past you, some stepping over muddy ridges with shocking ease, you feel as though you've stumbled into a ceremony older than memory. Oh, and here's a delightful oddity. It's believed that Archelon's nearest modern relatives might be leatherback turtles, which have the remarkable ability to regulate their internal temperature in cold water. That's right. Sea turtles that cheat cold like a teenager wearing shorts in winter. You look at one particularly ancient-looking archelon and imagine it once traversed a chilled inland sea, guided not by maps, but by thunder itself. You start to follow. Not because you expect to keep up, you won't. They move like patience incarnate, but you want to see where they go. The ground shifts underfoot. What was once an impassable tangle of mud and root has now been softened, sculpted by the storm into a kind of shallow channel. The turtles navigate it like they've been here before, and maybe they have across generations. You pause, watching as their massive forms glide inland, their bellies barely touching the softened floor. One of the older ones stops briefly beside an old turtle nest trampled by wind and water. It lowers its head. Not in mourning, maybe in assessment, then it moves on. And here's the eerie part: none of the smaller turtles follow them. They remain near the marsh, safe and soggy, rooted in the land that remembers them. It's like two worlds, one that stays, one that chases thunder. And now you're thinking about migration not as a journey but as a belief. A belief that somewhere just beyond the storm something better waits. Not paradise, just possibility. A joke bubbles up. If you asked a prehistoric turtle for its 5-year plan, it'd answer, walk toward the thunder and see who's still around. You glance up. The sky's clearing now. Just the faintest glow behind the clouds, a suggestion of light rather than a promise. And in that softening horizon, the silhouettes of Archelon move steadily into the unknown. No GPS, no map, no leader. Just the memory of thunder. And a sense that sometimes the loudest noise in the sky isn't meant to frighten you, it's meant to call you. The storm has passed, but the world hasn't quite decided how to behave yet. The air feels embarrassed, like someone who overreacted in public and now wants to pretend nothing happened. Birds begin to chirp again, but tentatively, as if asking permission. Water slinks back toward lower ground. And the turtles start to gather. Not all in one place. Not in a perfect circle like some cult of the shell, but close enough that you start to notice a pattern. They're drifting toward a single spot. A patch of mud still steaming slightly where something was struck. You follow, and there it is, the tree, or what's left of it. A low twisted trunk half split by lightning. Its bark still weeping smoke. Blackened splinters scattered like the jaw of some monster mid-yawn. One branch still holds its shape, but sways at an odd angle like it's trying to remember how to be a tree. And around this smoldering monument, turtles, at least a dozen, maybe more. They're not eating, not digging, just basking. In the steam, one large female edges closer to the heat and lowers herself with slow, deliberate reverence. Her shell clicks faintly as she settles. Another rests beside her, then another. No fights, no dominance games, just shared space. At first, it makes no sense. Why would cold-blooded reptiles huddle near something that just almost exploded? But then you remember turtles aren't just weatherproof, they're weather readers. To them, heat is not threat. Heat is hope. After a storm, the sun can take hours to return. But a split tree, that's immediate warmth, a free heat source. Like nature saying, hey, my bad for earlier, here's a spa voucher. And this warmth. It's not just comforting, it's strategic. Heat speeds up metabolism. It jumpstarts digestion. For nesting females, it helps kickstart egg-laying routines that were stalled by fear or cold. Historians still debate whether this kind of behavior gathering near struck trees is learned or instinctual. Could turtles have passed it on through generations? Is it coincidence, or are we watching one of those ancient rituals that looks like chaos until you understand the rhythm? One thing's for sure, it feels intentional. And honestly, it looks a little spiritual. There's no chanting, no head bowing. But the way they arrange themselves in semicircular formations, each angling to catch the steam, it feels like witnessing an ancient rite. Like communion, but with moss and firewood. And you're reminded of an odd little fact. Some cultures have myths where turtles carry fire in their bellies. One Southeast Asian legend says that thunder cracks open the world and turtles help carry the released heat back to the ground. You always thought it was metaphor. Now you're not so sure. You move closer, stepping carefully over soft roots and discarded twigs until you can feel it too. That moist wood sap heat that smells like cooked soil and secrets. It's not hot enough to burn, just warm enough to remind you you're alive. And the turtles seem to glow in it. Their shells, darkened by the storm, shimmer faintly in the diffused light. Rainwater still beads along their ridges, turning them into living mosaics. One older male near the edge raises his head, not to look at you, but toward the steam rising from the cracked bark. His eyes blink slowly. Then he lowers himself again. You get the feeling he's done this before. Not here, not this exact log, but some version of it. The ritual is ancient. The setting always changes. You crouch, not wanting to break the moment. The ground is warm beneath you, softer than it should be. And your fingers rest on a spot where the bark has peeled back, exposing smooth, pale wood beneath. It's hot, not dangerously so, but it hums. And then, just for a moment, you wonder if this tree remembers being struck, like the turtles do. Because here's the thought that won't leave your head. Thunder leaves marks on everything. Not just trees, not just sky, but on creatures, on choices, on shells. And maybe, just maybe, that's why they come. Not just for heat, not just for instinct, but to witness, to feel what the world remembers. There's a joke in there somewhere. If turtles had museums, the lightning tree exhibit would be a sun lamp and a scorched stick labeled "Do Not Touch Unless Cold." You smile, but the moment stays sacred. You look around. The steam rises in lazy swirls like ghost thoughts made of wood smoke and memory. The turtles remain motionless, their breath nearly invisible, their purpose unmistakable. You wonder if they think this tree died bravely, if they respect it, or if they just appreciate the temporary sauna. Either way, they stay. And in that staying, they remind you of something you forgot during the noise of the storm. Sometimes the aftermath isn't for fleeing, it's for gathering, for feeling what the world almost became, for resting in the quiet proof that you outlasted it. You sit there not moving, not thinking, just warming. And for once, you don't rush to understand. You wake up not from sleep exactly, but from that soft, floaty place your brain goes when warmth and quiet hold hands. The turtles are still around the smoldering tree, some pressed so close to the cracked bark they look half melted. Others have spread out, forming loose semicircles in the muddy clearing. It's the most relaxed you've ever seen reptiles look. But then something odd catches your eye. One turtle, mid-sized shell patterned with pale streaks like a lightning bolt frozen in keratin, isn't resting. It's rocking, just slightly. A slow forward-back motion, almost imperceptible, like it's testing the limits of gravity or memory. You crawl a little closer, careful not to disturb the others. The rocking turtle stops the moment you settle, then begins again. It's rhythmic, not frantic, not injured, just aware. And that's when the idea hits you. What if turtle shells, those bony shields shaped by evolution and inconvenience, aren't just for protection? What if they're archives? See, each scute, those individual shell plates, grows in layers. New rings form over time, responding to diet, temperature, injury, and stress. If you cross-sectioned one, it might resemble tree rings or glacier cores, each line telling a story. Scientists have noted deep pitting and scarring in fossil shells that align with known climatic events. Droughts, volcanic winters, even solar anomalies. It's not precise science yet, but it's enough to make paleontologists squint harder at old bones. And so you look again at the turtle in front of you, not as a creature, but as a walking timeline. A memory dome. What if this turtle's shell doesn't just protect it from thunder, but remembers every time it tried? The rocking motion continues, slow and deliberate. Maybe it's soothing. Maybe it helps it feel the heat beneath its belly and the air shifting above. Or maybe, just maybe, it's tuning in. Historians still debate whether animals process trauma the way we do. But the evidence for somatic memory stored in the body is mounting. Turtles who survive floods tend to nest differently afterward. Those who were injured during lightning storms bury their eggs deeper. Some even delay mating cycles following a severe environmental stress. That isn't random. That's adaptation with a scar. You glance around and realize something else. No two shells here look alike. Some are chipped at the edges, worn down like coins passed between too many pockets. Others have jagged scars trailing across the back like signatures left by claws or maybe lightning itself. A particularly ancient turtle near the fallen tree has a massive crater at the top of its shell. It looks like the surface of the moon. You want to ask how it got there. But of course, you won't get an answer. You remember reading once that some shell injuries take years to heal, that turtles can live long enough to wear their battles like badges, that their shells can crack but not give up. And now the phrase won't leave your head. The shell as sky memory. A phrase that sounds poetic until you realize it's probably true. Did you know that some sea turtles have magnetite, tiny magnetic particles in their brains that help them navigate using Earth's magnetic fields? It's not directly related to thunder, but it's another layer of animal architecture that reads the invisible. Now, Imagine coupling that with a lifetime of electrical storms, shifting air pressures, sound vibrations. Is it that hard to believe that turtles feel thunder in their bones? You look again at the rocking turtle. Its shell has a crack, a faint one, like an old smile. You trace it with your eyes from front to back. It isn't fresh, it's healed, but not forgotten. There's a strange reverence in how the other turtles don't crowd this one. They keep a respectful distance, not fear, not indifference, something closer to recognition. Maybe in the turtle world, damage is how you earn respect. Maybe a cracked shell says, "I've heard the sky scream," and kept crawling. A joke drifts up. If humans wore their thunder the way turtles do, we'd all be walking around with lightning bolt tattoos and waterproof blankets stitched into our backs. Not a bad look, honestly. You shift your attention to your own hands, your own body. No shell, just skin, bare and unfinished. You feel suddenly ridiculous standing among these armored historians with your soft, unmarked surface. The rocking turtle finally stops. Not abruptly, not like a decision, just enough. It settles back into stillness as if satisfied that the message has been received. And you wonder what it would say if you could understand the language of vibration and steam. Maybe something like, "The storm passes," but not without writing its name. You lean back again, watching as more turtles begin to stir. Some slowly return to the marsh, others remain. One scoops a bit of ash into its claws and flings it, not violently, just like it's part of a habit you'll never understand. And you realize no matter how old the turtle, how cracked the shell, or how many storms it survived, there's still something to do afterward. A shifting, a rocking, a readjusting of the shell so the body inside can remember but not stay inside the moment forever. And that's the wisdom you didn't know you were looking for. You've been watching turtles long enough now to know when something is off. One of them, smaller, flatter, with a lopsided shell like it was molded in a hurry, moves differently. Not slower, not faster, just wrong. Every time thunder rumbles even faintly, this turtle pulls into its shell so sharply it leaves scratch marks in the mud. Not cautious, not calm, reflexive. It doesn't wait, doesn't calculate. It flinches. Hard. Even when the sky is quiet, it holds tension like a bowstring. The others are beginning to relax, warming their bellies, tipping their noses towards sunlight that can't quite break through, but this one stays hunched, tucked, folded, like it expects the sky to spit again at any second. You edge closer, careful not to break a stick or sneeze, or do anything that might add to its paranoia. It doesn't see you exactly, but it senses you. A slight turn of the head, a pause in breathing, that invisible radar of the survival wired. You notice now there's a dent along the back of its shell. Not decorative, not natural. A compression as if something once fell on it. Or worse, struck it. Maybe a rock slide. Maybe a collapsing branch. Or maybe lightning. Historians still debate whether lightning can directly kill a turtle inside its shell. Some say the carapace acts like a Faraday cage, dispersing the current harmlessly around the body. Others argue the shell magnifies the damage, especially if the strike is close. And then there's the murky middle, not dead, not unscathed, just different. This turtle, it's carrying something, not visibly. Not in the way you'd spot a broken limb or missing scute, but in the way it reacts. Every crack of thunder, every hint of pressure change hits it like a ghost in the spine. It jerks, it hides. Sometimes it twitches even before the sound, like it knows. You sit near it, giving a respectful distance, trying to feel what it feels. You can't, of course. You don't have a shell, but you try. Another rumble so far off you barely register it. But the turtle does. It flinches again, then retreats into its own body with such finality that you hear the air squeak between its limbs and shell. The others ignore it. Or maybe they've stopped trying to understand. It's the odd one. The overreactor. The one that never got over it. But here's the uncomfortable truth. This turtle is probably right more often than the rest. Because hypervigilance, while exhausting, often comes from experience. And in the wild, trauma doesn't get you therapy. It gets you more time alive. There's a term researchers sometimes use, conditioned aversion. It describes how animals exposed to a strong negative stimulus, like electric shock predator, attack, or environmental stress, will avoid or overreact to similar cues in the future. For most species, it fades. For some, it never does. And that's the turtle in front of you now. A walking panic response. A thunder veteran who doesn't trust clear skies anymore. You want to reach out. Say something comforting, but what could you possibly offer? The turtle doesn't want words. It wants the storm to never return. You lie down in the mud next to it, not touching, just sharing the silence. You both watch as another turtle climbs over a stick with deliberate awkwardness and settles near the blackened tree. A few more bask, one yawns, one sneezes. Yes, turtles can sneeze. It's mostly adorable and vaguely insulting when you're feeling poetic. But the flinching turtle, it doesn't move. Not because it can't, because it won't. And you begin to wonder, do turtles remember pain the way we do? Do they hold on to it, rehearse it in their limbs? Or does it simply live in the shell, passed along like a whisper every time a cloud forms overhead? A small joke bubbles up. If trauma were a family heirloom, this turtle's shell would be the attic. You whisper it aloud, hoping it softens the air. The turtle doesn't respond, but it also doesn't flinch. So maybe that's something. You imagine a prehistoric storm, not today's drizzle and grumble, but a real sky shatterer. One of those primeval tantrums where lightning lit up entire valleys and trees didn't fall, they disappeared. Maybe this turtle, this very one, was born under a sky like that. Maybe its first memory is vibration and heat and the sound of something ancient and angry. Or maybe it's just like you, scared of things it can't name. Did you know some turtles have been found with fossilized shell injuries that perfectly match the shape and energy signature of lightning strikes? Not often, but often enough. And every so often those turtles lived, with crooked shells, with healed cracks, with a little too much flinch in their step. You sit up. The sky is clearing again, almost sheepish. You look one last time at the dented turtle. It hasn't moved. But neither has it run. And that's worth something. You reach the edge of the shallow slope where the marsh descends into an open basin that wasn't here before the storm. It looks freshly carved, like the land shifted in its sleep. Rainwater pools in the hollows. The mud is still soft enough to remember every footstep, yours included. And then you see them. Shells. Dozens. Not moving. You freeze, not in fear, but in recognition. These aren't living turtles. They're fossilized, locked in mudstone. Some still in the act of curling inward, limbs pulled halfway back, necks retracted. Not sprawled, not scattered. Curled. The position is uncanny. Not just death, it's death with intent. You crouch near the edge, careful not to step too close. The mud around them has hardened into an ancient cradle, each shell encased in a sunken impression like a thumb pressed too hard into clay. Some are small juveniles. Others are enormous, broad-backed, wide-ridged with shallow cracks that time has painted like silver spiderwebs across their carapaces. And all of them face the same direction, toward the sky. You don't say anything out loud because it feels wrong to make noise here, like whispering in a cathedral made of silence and sediment. A gust of wind rolls across the basin, gentle but unsettling. You're not cold, but your skin ripples anyway. There's a story in this place. It hasn't been told properly yet. Or maybe it is just not in words. You imagine the day it happened. Storm clouds spiraling overhead like dark vinegar in water. Wind that bent trees at the spine. Rain so thick it blurred everything into one long smudge. The turtles must have sensed it coming. You know now, they always do. And so they began to curl, not from surprise, but in preparation. They did what turtles always do, tucked in. Froze. Waited. But the storm didn't pass. Something about this one didn't end. Historians still debate what caused fossil beds like this. Was it a flash flood? A mudslide, volcanic ashfall timed perfectly with a migration? Some argue it was a sudden temperature drop, a cold snap so sharp The turtles never got the chance to uncurl. But the way they're positioned, it doesn't feel accidental. It feels ritualistic, like a mass sheltering. A collective instinct pulling every limb inward, one last desperate embrace of shell and sky. You walk among them carefully now, weaving between fossils that feel more present than most living things. You spot one mid-turn as if it tried to reposition before the end. Another is so small it probably hadn't laid its first egg. Your breath feels heavier, not just because of what's here, but because you realize how many turtles didn't make it. How many trusted the stillness one too many times? How many curled just as the lightning came too close? You spot a shell with burn marks, faint radial etchings scorched across the top. Not from fire, from energy. The kind that doesn't leave a wound so much as etches itself into history. Did you know that lightning, when it hits sand, can create glass sculptures called fulgurites, pale jagged tubes like nature's own scribbled signature? Now imagine that energy hitting a turtle. Now imagine it happening to 12 turtles. Now imagine a young one seeing it and never forgetting. Maybe this basin is where that memory began. There's a phrase that forms in your mind and refuses to leave. The fossil who curled before the flash, because that's the image that haunts you, not the destruction. The anticipation, the second before, the flinch, the withdrawal, the desperate belief that the shell was enough. Maybe that's what's preserved here, not just bodies but belief. You reach out and gently touch the edge of one fossil. It's cold, slick with recent rain, but hard as glass. Your fingers trace the scute lines so well preserved they look recent. This turtle could have died last week, but it didn't. It died millions of years ago. And still it curls. Still it faces the storm. Still it waits. The others gather behind you now. Living turtles, silent and watching, clustered along the ridge. None enter the basin. None step close to the fossils. Do they recognize it? Do they feel something? Turtles don't cry. Turtles don't eerie. But turtles remember. Not with words. Not with monuments. With direction. With silence. With the choice to turn away from a place that once carried too much thunder. One of them snorts. Another shifts backward a few inches. They won't go further. You stay a moment longer. Not to mourn, to listen, to hear what the fossils never got to say. A final joke finds you. If turtles had gravestones, each would say the same thing. I waited. It didn't. And then quietly, you step away. You return from the fossil basin with mud in your shoes and time in your chest. The living turtles, those quiet monks of the marsh, are slowly dispersing again. Some move toward the tree line, others vanish into shallower water, their shells barely rippling the surface. But one remains, low to the ground, eyes half-lidded, and resting in a strange position, angled upward, slightly tilted to one side, like it's listening for something deeper than sound. You approach cautiously, not wanting to interrupt, but something about its posture feels intentional. That's when you hear it. Not thunder, not birdsong. A faint thump, deep, subtle, like a heartbeat through the mud. You freeze. It happens again. Not from the sky, from below. You crouch instinctively, palm to the earth, feeling for rhythm. And it's there, not consistent, not mechanical, just lurking. And the turtle in front of you. It shifts its weight, as if it recognizes this too. Suddenly the pieces connect. You remember stories, scattered mentions in dusty paleontological journals of predators who used sound to hunt. Creatures who didn't just hear footsteps, but felt them through waterlogged earth. Some ancient crocodilians, according to emerging theories, could detect storm vibrations not to flee from weather, but to ambush prey. Historians still debate whether these storm-stalking reptiles used thunder tactically, whether they learned to move with the rumble masking their approach in nature's percussion, or whether it was simpler, thunder drove animals into the water and that's where the ambush began. Either way, the idea stuck. That thunder doesn't scare some predators. It summons them. You turn your gaze toward the reeds, dense, quiet, undisturbed. But something shifts in the pattern, a slow, fluid motion where the mud should be still. You don't see a full form, just a curve, a flick, the suggestion of jaw. Then it's gone again. And the turtle, it does not move. Its head stays perfectly still. Its limbs press slightly deeper into the soil. Its entire posture says, I know. I've known. You realize the tremors you're feeling might not be thunder at all. They might be footsteps. It's footsteps. Whatever it is. You take a step back. The mud protests. That noise alone, that splash, feels dangerous now. You scan the reeds again, heart beating loud enough to mimic thunder. But there's nothing. Just that faint, soft boom. Then silence. Then another turtle moves. A different one this time, near a dry patch of ground. It slides forward once, then freezes. It's not panic, it's choreography. They're spacing themselves out, not to flee, to be harder to target. Because if you're a predator that hunts by vibration, clustered prey is a gift. Spaced out prey. Not so easy. You're watching living math unfold. A geometry of survival. And these turtle, they're not victims. They're veterans. They know. You whisper aloud, the crocodile that hunted by thunder. It sounds ridiculous. Mythic. Like something from a bedtime story meant to keep children from wandering out during monsoon season. But here now in this swamp, it doesn't feel like myth. It feels like a memory the mud hasn't finished telling. Did you know crocodilians have sensory pits in their jaws that detect the tiniest ripple? That even today's crocodiles can lie completely submerged and feel a fish swim past from meters away. Now imagine a prehistoric version of that. Bigger, smarter, bolder, waiting not for silence but for noise. Using thunder as camouflage. You turn again to the turtle in front of you. It hasn't blinked. Its shell is partially cracked at the edge. A healed wound rimmed in algae. A scar. Maybe it's encountered the thunder hunter before. Maybe it survived. Or maybe it remembers through others. The way turtle memory isn't linear but layered. Built into reflex, into posture, into the shape of a shell that knows exactly how far to tuck in when the earth starts to pulse. You lie down beside it, palms flat to the ground again, trying to feel what it feels. You wait, and in that stillness you feel the rhythm. Not a chase, not a hunt, a game. Thunder above, thunder below. One hunting with teeth, one hunting with fear. And somewhere in between turtles, ducked, silent, learning how to stay unseen. A final joke drifts up. If turtles wrote self-help books, Chapter 1 would be titled, How to Outweight the Monster Who Thinks You Moved. You stay with them a little longer, not because you have to, but because it feels like the safest place in the world right now. Surrounded by stillness, wrapped in the collective wisdom of creatures who've learned not just how to survive, but how to listen. By now, the sky has gone still, not just quiet emptied. Whatever drama it had to perform, it played its part, took its final bow, and left you here with the smell of wet bark and a chorus of insects testing their courage. You're alone, but not. The turtles are still with you, scattered in slow arcs, some basking, some nudging soil back over disturbed nests. The oldest ones haven't moved in a while, but you don't get the sense they're waiting for something. It feels more like they're finished. The steam has faded. The tree is no longer warm. The predator in the reeds, if it was real, has either left or decided you're not worth the trouble. You take a slow breath and it hits you all at once. They outweighted the storm, not by chance, not by hiding, but by knowing how to exist on a different clock entirely. There's something surreal about witnessing an animal that doesn't react the way you would, doesn't panic when you panic, doesn't celebrate when you relax. They move through time like it's syrup, not water-dense, sweet, and impossible to rush. You walk through the clearing now, taking in the quiet motion of those who stayed. Every turtle you pass feels like an elder, like they know something they haven't bothered to say out loud. One is dragging itself along a ridge, claws caked in yesterday's storm neck, extended with a regal calm that makes you feel embarrassingly like a toddler in a dinosaur costume. Another is lying half-buried in sand, eyes closed, breathing so slowly that you stare to make sure it's alive. It is. It just doesn't need to prove anything. And then there's the one near the flattened reeds. Cracked shell, algae slicked, and clearly ancient. It lifts its head just enough to look towards you, and you swear for a single second that it sees you not as you are, but as something still unfinished. And in a way, it's right. You're not built for this world. Not really. You run on speed and noise. You think meaning comes from motion. You invented clocks because you couldn't stand not knowing when. But the turtles, they don't count time, they wear it. Each line on their shells, each fleck of moss, each small fracture is a story no one rushes to tell. Their survival doesn't come from strength or numbers or fire. It comes from being boring, being uneventful, being too slow to notice and too stubborn to leave. Did you know turtles survived every mass extinction event? All 5 of them. They were there when continents cracked, when ice swallowed oceans, when comets punched holes in the atmosphere. They watched the age of fish, the age of reptiles, the age of mammals, and shrugged. Historians still debate whether this longevity is purely luck, or if their slow metabolism and low-stakes lifestyle made them immune to the drama of extinction. But the record doesn't lie. They're still here, and most of what came after them isn't. A turtle passes you now, dragging a slimy trail through damp grass. It stops, looks back, then continues forward at a pace so glacial it makes your teeth itch, and you realize its path isn't random, it's ancient. It's walked this route, or one like it for generations, not because it's the best, but because it worked. Once, maybe twice, long enough to become the default. We chase novelty, they trust routine. And now you're wondering, maybe that's what thunder teaches turtles. Not to hide, but to trust the long game. To do the opposite of everything we're told. Stay still. Don't escalate. Let the storm pass without you. If the sky yells, don't yell back. If the predator waits, wait longer. If the world ends, rebuild without noise. You sit again one last time in the center of the marsh that doesn't seem to need you. The sun peeks through a sliver in the clouds, just enough to glint off the curved backs of the few turtles still visible. They shine like stones polished by centuries of patience. No ceremony, no fanfare, just quiet. And slowly, they disappear into water, into mud, into thickets of ferns that close behind them like stage curtains. Not gone, just elsewhere. The storm is gone. The trees drip gently. Even the birds have gone quiet, as if unsure what to sing after so much silence. And you feel like a statue just starting to learn how to breathe. You stay until the water stops steaming, until the last turtle disappears beneath a tangle of reeds, until even the breeze forgets to whisper. Nothing announces the end of a storm. There's no closing bell. Just this, a quiet so complete, it feels like the world is holding its breath, unsure whether to begin again or leave things still. You're not sure how long you've been here. Time hasn't mattered for a while now. All that's mattered is waiting, and you've been taught patiently how to do that. The ground beneath you is soft and cooling. You lay back just for a moment, letting your spine press into the damp. Above the clouds thin into brushstrokes. There's still a heaviness in the air, but it's no longer threatening. It's just leftover. Something brushes your hand. You look over, half expecting one of the turtles to have returned. But it's a small piece of bark, lightweight, curved like a fragment of shell. You pick it up, examine it. The grooves run like growth rings, like scutes. You hold it up to the sky and watch the light shine through it. It looks like a memory. It looks like a whisper. You think about all the things thunder has meant in this marsh warning rhythm, invitation, camouflage, trauma. And for the turtles, somehow all of those at once. A final joke comes to you, not a punchline really, just a thought. If a turtle hears thunder in a forest and no one is around to tweet about it, does it still outlive you? You smile. The kind of smile you'd give a very old relative who just taught you how to sharpen a knife without saying a word. You rise slowly, not stiff, just changed. The clearing is almost empty now. The burnt tree has cooled, the steam is gone. But the shapes in the mud remain fossil echoes, fresh and ancient, left behind by turtles who were here and turtles who were always here. And maybe in some small way you'll carry this story too. Not in your bones, but in your timing. When the next storm comes, because it will, You'll remember what it means to stop moving, to listen, to wait, to tilt your head slightly toward the sky and say with no words at all, "I know," and then to keep breathing, even after the lightning, even after the predator, even after the world forgets why you curled up in the first place. Because that's what they taught you. That the storm ends, but you're still listening, always still, always here. And so tonight we walked with turtles, not through time, but alongside it. Through steam and silence, thunder and fossil predator and memory. We followed them as they taught us how storms are not to be outrun, but waded through. Not defeated, but outlasted. We saw how a flash in the sky becomes more than light. It becomes a rhythm, a warning, a pulse the shell remembers long after the clouds have passed. We watched a young turtle flinch before the thunder even arrived. We saw giants crawl inland like pilgrims chasing the echo of storms. We stood in the presence of fossils curled mid-breath, frozen forever, in the act of bracing. And somewhere along the way, without even noticing, we became slower too, more still. We let go of speed, let go of noise, listened for the vibration beneath our feet, and learned what it meant to trust in stillness, not as weakness, but as wisdom passed down through shell scar and soil. Tonight, we didn't just observe ancient life. We felt it. We remembered with it. And maybe, just maybe, we became something softer, stronger, and slower because of it. So the next time thunder cracks the sky, don't run. Just stop. Breathe. Listen. And if you hear something under the noise, a pause, a rhythm, a waiting, you'll know the turtles are still with us, still listening, still teaching, still here.